Good afternoon, everybody. How's everyone doing? My name is Benjamin Nyland, and thank you for joining today. I'll be doing this by myself, so if you see that I don't answer your questions right away, just give me a few minutes or seconds, hopefully, to give me time to be able to see your questions. The idea behind this is I've been doing a lot of presentations, going to the SharePoint Saturdays and presenting a lot of the material directly to people attending these SharePoint Saturdays. But I thought, why not show it as well through a webinar? So basically what I'm going to show you today, I actually presented in SharePoint Saturday, New Hampshire a couple of weeks ago. And the idea here is to kind of open our eyes to what is the product features or product catalog feature inside of SharePoint. So I want to give you one takeaway, or there is one takeaway from this, is that it is not just for selling products. Now, of course, our example and what we're going to look at today through our sessions, it's a lot of demos, it's mostly demo, but we're going to look at how the product catalog works with a product site. But I want you to realize, and I think I wrote a blog post recently about it and posted it as well, that it's not just for products, and you can use it to build your intranets, your announcements, your contacts, offices, anything that you want with SharePoint. So as we're doing this presentation, make sure to always try to see how you could apply this in your environment as well. All right. So to start it off, this is me. Benjamin Nyland, and if you want to follow, you can always follow using the hashtag or my Twitter handle that you want. So the hashtag Sharegate, which thank you again for hosting this webinar that we can join easily. And of course, if you don't know, Sharegate is a migration tool. My name is Benjamin Nyland, and if ever you want to come back for content, visit our blog. I write quite a bit of articles on many different topics, but of course, that's not what we're here for. So let's continue. There's a URL that I've temporarily provided. So if using your computers, you navigate to the URL that you have on the screen. Now, mind you, this may be a little slower than usual. Don't worry, the demonstration that we're going to look at today is going to be using a different environment, but I provided under this URL, bnyland.cloudapp.net, just for today. You can see what we're going to do, what we're going to work with. So the idea, let me close this up, and using my browser, I'll navigate to it. This is our objective, is to be able to get a website. Now, let's ignore the home page. The idea is to really get a navigation that makes sense and that's completely automated based on the products that we put, or the content that we put in our SharePoint list. And then when we click on it, we're going to get a page. Now, you see what I meant by the performance? Bear with me. When you click on the hyperlink, we'll be able to see these items filtered and use a refinement panel on the left. So the idea of this session is, how can we get to this? So at any point while I'm building, you can either ask questions or visit this SharePoint site that's available publicly and try to see where we're at, or if you have any questions, it'll be easier to follow when you have something to actually visit or play with. So that's pretty much our objective. This is what we want to get to. And if you take 2 seconds to look at my screen right now, you can tell that I only have 3 categories, or 3 main categories. And this is the new concept that's available in SharePoint 2013. And I keep saying this and try to implement it as much as possible, is that we're no longer have to or need to build very static SharePoint sites anymore. What we can do is we can start building search-driven SharePoint sites, so search-driven sites. And it's kind of a new concept for us in SharePoint 2013, because the search is so much better that, as you can see, in my environment, so if you go to my URL and you start visiting it, through all the pages that you see over there, there's actually only 3 SharePoint pages that I have built in my environment. There's the home page, there's a category page, and there's a details page. Everything that we have on these pages is all search web parts, so that we're able to actually dynamically change what's on the pages based on what the user is currently clicking in the navigation. That's the objective of today and building a product catalog or a product-driven website. So what's changed in SharePoint 2013? And that's kind of why are we able to do this, and why are we not able to do this in SharePoint 2010? Because SharePoint 2010 had search, right? So why are we just talking about now how it's awesome and how we can do all of these things? Well, a big thing that's changed in SharePoint 2013 is, of course, the integration of fast search directly into the SharePoint Server 2013. So a lot of customers, well, a lot, I'm not exactly sure how many people actually bought Fast Search for 2010, but it was quite expensive, right? For some it was roughly $50,000 for this license, and now all of a sudden SharePoint 2013 it's included for free inside the search engine of SharePoint 2013. So this is definitely a huge impact on what we're going to be able to do. So the algorithms, the way that it crawls, some of the features like the preview thumbnails that we have available on our SharePoint pages when we get the search results. So I'm not going to go into the details of what is fast and what has actually changed. My focus is mainly going to be around continuous scroll. And continuous scroll, let's get this out of the way. It is not required for anything that I'm going to show today. And I want to just clear up a bit the confusion that many have related to continuous scroll. What is continuous scroll? So if you take it back in SharePoint 2010 or the regular search that you're used to, in search, what we used to do is we would specify a content source, so an environment that we would start crawling. We would tell SharePoint, I want you to get all the SharePoint I want you to get all the SharePoint sites, and I want you to crawl them and put them in your database, in your index file, right? And then we would have to do a full crawl, or we would start building incremental crawls afterwards. But what would an incremental crawl? A lot of people complain, well, I don't have any of the updated information. I told my incremental crawl to run every 15 minutes, but even after 4 hours, I still wouldn't get my content to appear in the search results. So what happened there? Why would it not work, or why did we think it didn't work? So the incremental crawl could technically only launch one process at a time, and let me explain that. If you told your incremental crawl back then, or even today in SharePoint 2013, if you're using an incremental crawl, and you told it to run every 15 minutes, but it took a lot longer for the incremental crawl to finish its job, it wouldn't start every 15 minutes, right? Because it didn't finish, so it didn't get the time to run back to the start line and start the next incremental crawl. And that's what happened is when SharePoint administrators would first set up search, it would work just fine. Set it up every 15 minutes, content would come up, but then after 3-4 months of adding content, then all of a sudden what happened is search results were not fresh. That means the content that we added would not show up in the next 15 minutes because it would take the incremental crawl 6 hours to complete, and so it couldn't start every 15 minutes. So then what we said in 2013, and by we, I don't mean me, I mean obviously Microsoft, is that they brought into the picture continuous scroll. And although the name, and this is, I got confused too, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw the word continuous scroll, the first thing that came up to my mind is, well, it's continuously crawling, right? It's always crawling, that's what I thought it was doing. But no, by default, your continuous scroll also runs every 15 minutes, and this is the default behavior, right? So the continuous scroll is running every 15 minutes. However, if it didn't finish the previous one, it's able to start another one in parallel, right? There's also a lot of changes thanks to Fast, so that while the crawler is crawling, it's easier or faster to put things in the index file. So whether you're using incremental crawl or you're using continuous crawl, when the index runs or the crawl runs, your items will appear a lot faster in the search results. It doesn't have to wait till the entire crawl has been finished. So that's really the difference. And I want this to be a very important, because what I see in many environments that I join or as I go as a consultant is I see people activating continuous scroll left and right just because it's new or because it sounds like it's better. Absolutely not. Continuous scroll should only be enabled when you know it is required and it's a business need. For example, right now I'm building a brand new SharePoint public-facing site, and I want to make sure, since everything is search-driven, I have only 3 pages, and everything that I have on my pages are just built using search. So the content is very important for me to be crawled very, very effectively and very fast. So for me, I would need continuous crawl. But I'm not going to activate it for my entire farm. Instead, I'm going to create a new content source, smaller, just for where my content exists. And then I'm going to use incremental crawl for the rest of my farm, because continuous crawl is going to take up a lot of juice from your SharePoint server because it runs on a new process every time. So we're talking CPU and we're talking RAM, a lot of it as well. Of course, there are other many changes that arrived in SharePoint 2013. The biggest one, and what many people are talking about, is the actual content search, the first one that we see on the list. Right? The content search is a brand new web part that has just been released, or I've seen in some Office 365 environments. So before, it was only for on-premises. It is only for the enterprise cal if you're using on-premises. However, even though I'm going to be looking at the content search web part today, I want you to know that there's an alternative for the content search web part. So even though you cannot use the content search web part because you don't have the enterprise license, you have the standard license, you can use the search results web part, which as we can see is the fourth one down. The search results web part is the same web part that we've been using for years with SharePoint 2007, 2010, but it has been completely revamped in 2013. And so it has all of the same features as the content search, and the options are exactly the same, except for one little thing that we're going to see. Of course, we've introduced display templates in 2013. There's no more XSLT. We're using HTML and CSS and JavaScript. And there are other changes like result sources and types and refinement, but I'm not going to cover all of them right now because the focus is really on building that site in hopefully under an hour and a half. So all this to say is combining the display templates, the fast search, the continuous crawl, we're able to create entire SharePoint sites using nothing but the search engine to be able to pull and access our information. So the new concept that we're going to see, whether we're talking about the product catalog or cross-site publishing, is that there's something that we're going to be able to do now, and this is a very traditional screen that we're going to show in many different environments. I've seen many people use this slide. It's from the Microsoft blog, actually. And it really shows you a very, very good concept of what we're going to build today, but also what you're able to do in the future in your environment, right? And again, don't hesitate to ask questions. Nobody has the voice enabled for now, but at the end, I can always enable the voices. So what you can see here is on the left, under the number 1, we'll see that now we'll have what we call an authoring site collection. Now, I'm saying site collection because obviously this is what we're going to work with, but you have to realize that by using search, these don't have to necessarily be in the same web application. So what this means today is that you can create your content in one authoring site collection. The search engine is going to crawl this. Now, whether you're using continuous crawl or regular incremental crawl, it doesn't matter, right? Because it's all about how frequently do you want to go and crawl that content. That's all that really means. And whether or not your server is powerful enough to be able to do that action. Once the information is stored in your search index and your search database, then we're going to use other web applications or other site collections, publishing site collection in this case, and we're going to consume the search engine and the information that is available inside of it to display it on the site collections that we want. So what we're going to be able to do is to really build these search-driven sites using the search index. Now, what you may not realize, but hopefully the arrows are able to show you, is that no publishing site collection in this case is actually talking or showing anything that is in the authoring site collection. So it never has to connect to it or visit it because the information that we need is just in the search index, right? So this concept is amazing. For example, for the site that we're going to build together, right? We're going to try and build a product site. I don't want the people on the internet to have access to the site collection where I'm actually creating the list and authoring the content and creating all of these things, going through publishing approval. That is none of their business. What they need to do is visit the publishing sites, and that's it. And the same goes when you're building an intranet. Again, what I want you to do during this presentation is to never think that this only applies to building a site for TVs and product selling. This is to build anything that you want where the authoring of content is going to be in one place and the publishing of it is going to be somewhere else. So even when you're building an intranet, you want your authoring users to use a regular SharePoint list, enter their announcements, enter their events, their pages, or anything of the sort. And then you're going to crawl this and have a regular, beautiful intranet or an extranet where your customers are going to log into, and they're just going to consume or look at the content that the search web parts has presented to them. I hope this makes sense so far. So this is cross-site publishing, and so far it has nothing to do with the product catalog. Right? You can do this with regular out-of-the-box search in SharePoint 2013. Now, what we want to do is to build this, right? It's to build not necessarily the homepage. I'm not going to cover the homepage itself, but it's to be able to have a navigation that is easy to use, that is automated based on how much content I add. So if I create a new category in my products list, I want it to show up over here, and vice versa if I add new subcategories and so on and so on. And then I want to display it so that users can just visit this page and consume it without having my actual editors. Wouldn't this be a pain if you tell the author of the content to log in to the publishing site where thousands of users are visiting or hundreds of users and to click on edit page and hopefully nothing is going to go wrong? That's not how I like to work, especially in 2013. I'd rather have the authors write it somewhere and then the visitors visit it somewhere else, right? So to be able to do this, we're going to have to start by preparing the site collections. I know I've been doing a lot of slides. Don't worry. There's quite a bit of demos. Actually, everything is probably much going to be a demo. Welcome to probably the ugliest slide you have ever seen. I did it on purpose to do these horrible colors, but basically is to emphasize that we're going to do 2 site templates, and that's what we're going to need. Now, do you have to use these site templates? No, not necessarily, because these are all features that you can activate later on. But what we're going to need to use is the site collection where we're going to author content and create content. We're going to use this. We're going to create the product catalog. As you can see, I wish I could use my arrows, but they don't appear in my mouse for whatever reason. But the third, under the publishing section, you can see I have the product catalog template. And this is the site template that I'm going to use to create the lists and libraries, but mostly lists where people are going to author the content, right? So again, it's called product catalog. Ignore that fact, okay? It has nothing to do with actual selling of products. It just means this is where we're going to author content. And then we can use a publishing site to consume this information and show it. But do you have to use a publishing site? Well, not necessarily, to be honest, but this is what I'm going to use in this case. So we're going to do I want to do a demo now? No, let's continue covering what they are, and then I'm going to show you how to create them. So when you create a product catalog, what is the difference? Why can't I just activate the product feature on another site collection? To be honest, there's no difference. It's just that the site product catalog site template is already comes prepared with the content types already enabled, the feature enabled, the term store has already been pre-configured to accept whatever you're going to create in this list or in this site to be used for product catalog, right? So it doesn't really matter, but it's always easier to just start from this template. So of course, try to do this as much as possible. I want you to realize that by default, when you create a product catalog site, it's going to create a list called the products list. And you can see it in my quick launch towards the left in the navigation. Don't worry, I'm going to do this again as a demo. But the product list that it creates by default, you don't have to use it. It's an actual completely custom list that means nothing to anyone, right? So the product list that comes out of the box, you don't have to use it. You can create, so if you go to the blog site that I mentioned earlier, one of my latest articles was how to create an announcement list and turn it into a product catalog. And it just shows you that I just create any list that I want. You can create a contact list if you want in this site. You can create a custom list. It does not matter because when you create the product site template, a product catalog site template, it doesn't do much. It's up to you to come and create lists, to populate them, Ideally, you'll see that we prefer to have a manage metadata column in this list to be able to categorize items, right? Remember that our content is going to have to live in other site collections, perhaps other web applications, heck, even another entire farm, as long as it consumes the same service application of the search, right? So we'll need to have and to make sure that we have and manage metadata, because it is the only column that is available cross-site collection, right? It's the only column that once you create it, right, the term set inside of a term group is going to be available throughout all of these environments, again, as long as it uses the same search service applications and the manage metadata service application. So in this case, all I really need to do is to then create a product list. But I'm going to stop this right now and I'm going to go into my demo, and I hope that you don't mind that I'm using a Mac right now. Yes, I am. I'm one of those. But ideally, and I hope everyone can see, I'll zoom in every now and then so that you can see, but right now I'm in my central administration. So this is a local environment on my laptop. So I'm going to go to create site collections. Now I already created these site collections, but I just want to show you that under publishing, I have to make sure that I use the product catalog and the publishing portal. So what I've done here is, if I go under sites, and by the way guys, this is my favorite new feature in 2013 because it allows me to jump between all the sites I've recently followed quickly. So what I've done is I've created a catalog site template, completely out of the box. And then to save us some time, what I have done is I have gone to the products list that comes out of the box, and I've added a bunch of columns and added tons and tons and tons of items. But just to cover kind of what's going on here, let's go to list settings. And when you create the product catalog, the site template, you'll see that automatically what you see is that there's a new list called products, and it's associated with a content type called product with image. This is a Microsoft SharePoint content type. And again, do you need to use this one? No, okay? It has nothing to do with the feature. It's just there as a suggestion, just like anything else in SharePoint, okay? I just used it, okay? So I used the product with image content type, but you can see that there's some other columns that have been added. For example, the screen size, specification, the weight, the zoom, features, the color of my products. So basically I have a bunch of columns. It's important, very, 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 very important, I hope I said it enough, that you actually use site columns whenever you're using or doing anything on the authoring site collection. So I can see that there's a quick question. What I'll do is I'll try to get to all the questions at the end to make sure that I can finish everything. I'll try to save them because this one's a long one, so I'll try to get back to it towards the end. By the way, all of this is recorded, so you'll still be able to access it afterwards. So make sure that you use site columns here, because when the search engine is going to go through your products list, whatever it is, announcement list or whatever it is that you decided to store, it needs to crawl your content, but it also needs to crawl your properties so that they become managed properties and become available to be used by the search engine anywhere else, right? Because the search web parts will only talk to managed properties, and I'll talk about these later on, but I just want to stress the fact that whenever you're adding columns in a list that you want to use as a catalog, you want to make sure that it's a site column or that you manually turn it into a managed property afterwards. So in this case, I went to list settings, and then I added a bunch of site columns to categorize. Item category is my manage metadata column. I have the item number, which is a unique number. I have a group number because sometimes I have different colors of the exact same product. So all of this is really just a bunch of definitions in a custom list. So far, this is not even a product or a product list, right? Once this is done, what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to tell search that this list that I've done is a catalog, right? And you do this by going to list settings, and this is the only moment where anything becomes related to the catalog feature in SharePoint. Because so far, all I did is create a sort of a site template, and then I created a list called products. associated a content type to it or my own content type. So far, it's only been regular SharePoint. Nothing's new. If you go, however, to catalog settings, right, this is where you're going to have to tell SharePoint and the search engine that this is a library that you want to use as a catalog. This is the only moment where everything becomes related to the catalog feature in SharePoint. Nothing before. The fact that you created a site template called product catalog means nothing up to now. It won't be able to be used anywhere else. Right? So I'm going to try to re-explain all of this step by step, and why am I choosing all of these settings. So now that I have this list, right? Now that I've created this product list and I have all of my products, and again, sorry, but if I click on an item, I will see the item number, what group it belongs to, and some other types of information that I may have inside of it. The overview that I want to appear, the features that I want to appear. That's really up to you to say how you want to type all of this. Once this is done, I go to my list. And don't forget, you can have as many lists as you want in your site template. It is not the site that is a product catalog. It is each list that you create inside of your list and library. Is it required, so I see a question that is smaller here, is it required to do a full crawl for this, or will it continue incremental crawl suffice? That is a very good question. So I talk about this a bit later on, but every time you create a new site column or you add a new site column in your list, you're going to need a new full crawl to run. But whenever you're creating a new item in your list that you're going to use as a product, then you'll just need an incremental crawl. Now, if you're thinking, oh man, I can't do a full crawl because it's in the central administration and it's only the IT people that can manage the full crawl. Don't worry, I have a remedy for that. As of now, even the library owner, the list owner or administrator is going to be able to tell the next incremental crawl or the next continuous crawl to do a full crawl just on this list. So that even if you add a new site column or you add a new managed property, then you'll be able to have it in your results. So let's get back here to my list settings, and I gotta tell this list that, yeah, you got all these properties, but now I gotta turn you into a catalog. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna say, yes, enable this library as a catalog, and then, and this is very crucial actually, anonymous access. I get a lot of questions related to this. People get really confused about this, right? Because right now I have this product catalog site, and then soon I'm gonna have, so if I open, soon I'm gonna have a publishing site that's blank right now, and I wanna be able to show everything inside this site later on, right? So are the people that are going to see all of these items here, if, for example, to be able to see the cameras or the computers or everything that we said we were going to show in our site, when they click on the camera, when they click on any of the items that I'm displaying, if they click on it, will they be going to the actual authoring site collection? No, right? Because as you saw in the diagram, we're doing a cross-site publishing, and the publishing is only talking to the search index. However, by default, the search index still does security trimming. So if you don't have access to something, you're not going to be able to see it. So this does not make your list. So currently I'm working on the product list. When I'm going to enable this, make anonymous, this does not change the permissions of my list. Okay? It has nothing to do with the permissions on my actual SharePoint list. All it is really telling the search index that the content that you crawled, right? If somebody that is anonymous or anybody requests to view this item, you won't need to have access to the actual item to be able to see it in the search results. So in the future, when I will get to this environment, to be able to see this wonderful, apparently, lens, I don't have to have access to the actual product catalog where this is stored. And I don't have to have access to this item. But the actual product list that contains this is not enabled anonymously. If I try to go there physically using the URL, I'm going to get an access is denied. It's only in the search index, while it did its crawling, he said to the search engine, hey, If anybody tries to access this, it's okay, as long as they stay inside the search index. Don't tell them to come towards me, buddy. Stay in the search index and show it to them. So this is what this item or this anonymous access means. Okay, I just want to clear that up. Has nothing to do with the list becoming anonymously accessed. Okay? This is particularly important. This is basically saying, how do you want to build your URLs? And this is actually the single reason, or the most important reason, why I prefer building catalog list instead of using the traditional cross-site publishing with just web parts. Why do I want to use the product catalog? Because it allows me to build, look at the URLs here on my screen. If I zoom in a little bit, look at the URL when I clicked on cameras. Let's click on camcorders. Look at the URL now, right? /cameras/camcorders. I'm going to let it load. Again, if I click on the item here, look at the URL again, right? So now it's showing me some kind of weird number. And then it's going to show me a bunch of different items over here, in this case 1. But basically what I'm showing here is the URL, and these are all the columns that you created, all your site columns that are available in your catalog list, because now we're saying this list can be enabled as a catalog. What I'm essentially saying is, how am I going to build these dynamic friendly URLs? So I want SharePoint in my publishing site to build the URLs of whatever item I go and visit using the group number and then using the item category. Sorry, is that what I want? The item number is probably what I want. There we go. Right? So basically my URLs now are going to be something my publishing site, right? Slash the category that I'm going to use for the next step, navigation hierarchy, slash the group number that is identified to my items, slash the unique item number that I have given in my list, right? Let's take a pause for a second. Imagine you're building your own intranet, and what you want to publish as catalogs are your actual announcements, right? So imagine you have pages of announcement in your intranet, which comes from your authoring site collection, and you build friendly URLs based on the metadata or tags that you apply to your item in a regular SharePoint list. That's awesome. So I'm gonna choose for the navigation hierarchy, this is the column called item category. So if you remember, when I showed you my product list where I created all of my products, I also have a column called item category. And this column, item category, if I go to my term store manager in a URL here, you'll see that my item category has been assigned to this term group over here called product hierarchy. And inside of it, I've just created a bunch of terms called under electronics, then audio, then cameras. These are just terms that I've built using the regular term store, right? Just basic. And then I went in the product list that we saw earlier, so in our wonderful product catalog, in the list that we created called products, and under the columns that we've created one called item category, and we've assigned these tags to each of these items. This allows me to build a navigation out of it. All I have to do right now is just say this is the column that I want to use, and it has to be a managed metadata if you're going to do this. When I'm done, I'm going to click on OK, and this has officially turned this specific list into a catalog. So already we learned something new here. The product catalog is not an actual SharePoint site. It's just lists. So I can have 20 lists in this site, which I manage with different security for different people, right? But what I'm going to do is turn them each into different catalogs for use in different site collections, either publishing or anywhere else. For this to work, so if I go back to my presentation here, I've prepared my product list, right? So we've begun, and we've assigned the product list as a catalog. Again, these are some little jokes. But once I've done all of this, right, I've created the list and I've said, here are the metadata, this is the column that I want to use for the URLs, this is the column of term store that I want to use for building the navigation, because in SharePoint 2013 we have managed metadata navigation now. Once this is all done, of course, I got to do a full crawl, right? So this is where I explain usually the full crawl versus continuous crawl, and of course on demand. By default, if you're creating new managed properties or you're creating new side columns, we're going to have to run a full crawl. If you're using the continuous crawl, right, and now we understand what continuous crawl really is, we said that by default, the continuous crawl runs every 15 minutes. If you've created a smaller content source, for example, in my search engine, let's go here. Let's go to my site collection administration that I must have somewhere open, or maybe not. Let's go to my site collection administration. If I go to service applications and I go to search, you can create what we call content sources, right? I'm glad you like the Batman kids in the car. So by default, this is what SharePoint does, right? It does the local SharePoint sites and it puts everything in it. This is not actually a good practice. A lot of people leave this as default. This is not good because as time grows, your content grows and your search becomes a lot bigger. Ideally, you want to create a new content source, for example, just for your authoring site collection, and just for that one, you're going to enable continuous crawl, right? By default, we said that the continuous crawl runs every 15 minutes, but as the little Batman kids will say, right, if you look at the bottom left, this is the PowerShell command that will change it to every 1 minute. So it's okay to put it every 1 minute as long as you're just continuously crawling one site collection that just has a few list items. I wouldn't enable this for my entire farm, right? Probably lose my job. So here, I'm going to go back to my central administration, and because I told this list that it is now going to be a new product catalog list, and I've enabled all of these options, and I've created new side columns, I'm going to have to launch a new full crawl, right? Because I've created all of these new side columns. So I'm going to launch this full crawl. On the other hand, if I had just created a new product, right? If I just came here and created a new product, then the simple out-of-the-box incremental crawl would have been just fine. Now, for the question that I got earlier, but what about if I don't have access to do a full crawl and I need to do a full crawl on this list? What you can do, and this is new to 2013, if you go to list settings, and then you go to advanced settings, if you scroll down just a little bit, you're going to have an option called reindex list. And basically what the reindex list does is it marks your current list as needed to be, how do I say this? It needs to be full crawled on the next incremental pass or on the next continuous crawl pass. So basically, even though your SharePoint is continuously doing incremental crawls every 15 minutes, if you press on this and you say, yes, I want a reindex list, and click on reindex list, the next time the incremental crawl is going to pass and it's going to arrive on this list, it's going to say, oh, I need to do a full crawl just for this specific list, right? So it's not going to have a huge impact. It's okay. It's just one single list or 3 or 4, 5, 6 lists. It doesn't matter, right? It's just you don't want to activate your continuous crawl on every single machine, on every single site collection in your environment. Okay, so I'll continue here. I got my full crawl. I should be eventually finishing. I don't have a huge environment and my SharePoint is pretty quick here. But once the full crawl is going to be finished, only at this point will my site and my list have become a product catalog. Because right now, if I go to my publishing site, it still won't be able to see anything. So I'll continue my presentation for now. And here, we'll talk in between about what exactly is happening right now, right? I just launched a full crawl, but why? What's going on? For those of you that haven't really worked with crawled and managed properly, I'll give you a quick example right away. So obviously I was in my product list earlier, right? It's my product list, which I've just said, hey, I want you to be enabled as a catalog for the future. And the crawling, which is my search engine, is passing through that product list and he's putting it in the search index, as we can see in the arrow above. But there are things happening during this process, right? I have site columns. I called one Contoso color and one Contoso weight and feature and blah, 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 and all of these friendly name columns that we have. But each of these columns are of different types of columns. Some of them are single line of text, some of them are choices, some of them are managed metadata. So while the search engine crawls any of your properties, any of your columns in the SharePoint list, they become in a sort of a, think of it as a search database, so to speak. It's not really like that. But in the search database, he has a section called crawled properties. And these are the real names that he indexes to be able to find them, but they're just crawled properties. It's what he was able to crawl. And as you can see, the column that I used to call Contoso color on my SharePoint library or on my SharePoint site is now called OWS_Q_text_Contoso color, right? And as a managed property, which I will explain afterwards, but it has changed name again. So what's happening? And there's a good table that I found on a blog, which I will reference at the end because it was really the best blog I have ever found related to the product catalog. It explains that when your document library or your list gets crawled, the site columns, there's a naming convention for all of this, right? It's not random. Every time you saw your OWS_something, it's actually very, very easy. And as you can see using the table below, is that if it's just a regular column, it's going to be _Q, then the type of column, so as you can see text or choice, and then it's going to put the name of the column afterwards. If you see the OWS before the name of the column, usually it can tell you that this is a crawled property. If you see the OWS after the name of your column, as you can see in the right column of my table here, it means that what you're looking at is a managed property. So already when I'm using my search sort of administration center, I can already quickly tell which ones are crawled properties and which ones are managed properties just by the way they are written, right? So once all of this is done, it's important to know that even though you have a crawled property, it won't do you any good unless you create a managed property for it. Because all of these search features, all the search web parts, the search results, the content search, can only interact with the managed properties and cannot talk to the crawled properties in the database, right? Because a managed property can include multiple crawled property, right? If in your environment you have a column for a company, and you have another column for a customer, but they really mean the same and they have the same values and you want to merge them, that's what the managed property is for, to map multiple or a single crawled property to it and then reference the managed property itself. So what we need to do is, and what's good about SharePoint 2013, we won't have to worry about it anymore. Every time you create a site column, it automatically becomes a managed property using the convention, the naming convention that you saw earlier. If you created a regular column without using the site column, then you'll have to go inside your search schema in your central administration or in your site collection administration and create the managed property manually. You'll have to create managed property and then go find the crawl property that you want to map it to yourself. I hope this gives you a good introduction to it. So at this point, I did a crawl, and of course, it should be done by now. So if I go double check my central administration and kind of refresh this, I did a full crawl, which means that this list, this product list with all of these item numbers and metadata has now been identified as a catalog. And if I go to my publishing site now, so sites, publishing, I'll be able to connect, whoop, that's the wrong one, there we go, publishing. I'll be able to connect that list as a catalog to this site, right? So here I'm going to go to the site settings, and I'm going to see Manage Catalog Connections under Site Administration. And if I click on Connect to a Catalog, I'm going to finally, as you can see, I can have announcements under a different site. So you can connect multiple catalogs from different authoring environments and connect it to your publishing site. For this case, we've been working on this catalog environment, so that's the one I'm going to connect. I'm going to give you a little, not a tip, but from experience, if you don't do this the correct way right at the beginning, there's a good chance you're going to have to start from, not from scratch, but close to it. Try not to make a mistake. It is very, very sensitive to human mistakes. So if I click on connect, for example, here, and I want to connect my catalog of products from my catalog site, right, under this URL, okay, I'll click on connect. If I make any mistake on this screen, there's a good chance I'm not going to be able to come back to it afterwards. Even though it physically allows you to do it, you'll see that I'll still be able to edit it. I've had some issues being able to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here, and there's two options. Do I want to integrate the catalog into my site? And this is exactly what I want. This is the purpose of a product catalog. It integrates completely into my site so that I can use the catalog term. Remember my item category manage metadata column? I'm going to use that as a navigation, and I'm going to build user-friendly URLs based on the items. Remember I said that I want the group number and the item number? It's going to do all of this by itself. This is the reason why I want the product catalog. Even for intranets, even for extranets, for collaboration site collections if you want. It's very important that you just don't see this only as products. And I really, it's too bad that it's called a product catalog, because I feel many people are just skipping over this and not looking at it just because it's called products. And it's not true, right? Of course, I can say, no, I don't want to integrate it. I just want to have it connected. And this pretty much does almost nothing at all. All it does is whenever I'm going to use a content search web part, for example, or a search results web part, when it's going to come time to choose my result source or my scope, well, my catalog is going to be available. But to be honest, it seems like a lot of a hassle and a lot of work for not that much result. So I'd rather we do an integration here. Which column, see, it's already available. And if you remember what I've done so far, I haven't done much. I mean, I've been pretty much setting everything by default. I want to use the item category, which is the column that I had associated when I went through the catalog settings in my catalog when I said publish it. Remember? And I said anonymous, yes, and there you go. So automatically it's going to ask me, well, this is a manage metadata column, and we found a term, which is the one you associated to your list, that is directly associated to the hierarchy. Is this the term that you want to use for the navigation of this site? Sure, why not? Then, and this is fun, and this is what I've done in my blog post, is that I've selected this other one just to be able to show it to people. But in this case, I'm going to add it to the navigation route, right? So a quick sort of parallel explanation here, and this is completely another course, but just for fun. If you are using SharePoint 2013, there's a new feature that allows you to, for any site that you want, so that the navigation, so we're talking about here, this at the top here, the navigation can be called managed navigation. That means instead of using the site administration to build the navigation in a static way, you use the term store to build it, right? And basically this is what it's saying, is that when you use that feature in the site navigation, it creates a new term group only for your site collection called site navigation. And what we're saying here is, I want you to take my terms that I've created somewhere else, and I want you to put them in this site navigation term group, either at the root and just start a brand new one, or under one that already exists. Because if you're building an intranet, your entire intranet might not be the result of products. So you might want to do an alternate location for that. And this is what I show in the blog post. So I recommend you check that out if you're interested in that. Finally, I'm going to say that I want to pin the terms. Pinning terms is very similar to reusing your terms in your term store. Basically, here, I'll get back to it in a few seconds, but basically I'm linking my terms to this site collection from the terms that I'm using in my term store, right? It's creating a copy somewhere else, but it's linking it. So if ever I create a new term in the future, it's going to appear in my site navigation. But I'm going to explain it in just a few seconds. I got to get out of this screen, and I don't want to do that right now. Remember the catalog item URLs? Do I want them to be pointing to the source catalog? So the users, do I want them to see the URL of the source where I write my content? Absolutely not, right? Not even an intranet, I don't think I want that, right? Maybe in some cases, yes, I want people to see the URL and I want people to click and go to that URL. But no, in this case, I want them to be relative to this site where I'm in right now, right? I don't want it to be pointing to the catalog site collection. So I'm going to keep it relative. And look at this. Guys, do you recognize my URL? This is my new SharePoint publishing site. Every time I'm going to click on a catalog product, it's going to automatically add either electronics or my category that I'm going to use here. The item category. It could be cameras. It could be camcorders. And I think you remember from up here, /cameras/camcorders. Then, look at this. Do you recognize this? So based on what I had just explained, you should be able to tell me what this is. The OWS is after the name of the column. This means that it's using the manage property in the URL. But how come it's using the group number and the catalog item number automatically as part of the URL? That's because when I published my catalog earlier, that's what I had specified. You could of course do it yourself, and now you know how to write manage properties. Then, and this is interesting, which pages am I going to use for the categories and for the items? Remember in our site that you have categories, for example, cameras, that shows you, this is a category page. It shows you all of the cameras. And then when you click on one of the camera, it's going to show you a different page, an item page. This is how the catalog works. Is you have a page that displays all the items from a specific category, and then you have a different page with a different page layout with different web parts that's going to show you all of the single item that you've selected. Again, take it out of products and think about your announcements. You've categorized your announcements, so you're going to have a page that shows you all of the announcements under a category, and then a page that shows a single announcement. So in this case, I'm going to let SharePoint create them for me, but later on I'm going to do something different. So when I'm connecting my catalog, I want to integrate it. I want to use this term set from my catalog list as the navigation hierarchy. I want this to become the navigation route. I want to pin the terms so that they're reused at the destination and not necessarily just copied over. I want to make the URLs relative to this site. I don't want them to be pointing to the old place. And then I want the format of the URL to be as such. I want these pages to be created for the category page and for the item page. I'm going to click on OK. And let's look at what just happened. It's going to take a few seconds to connect this catalog. Whoa, what just happened, guys? Look at my navigation at the top. It's all done. Look at my quick launch on the left. It's completely finished. If I go to the home page here, right? If I go to cameras and I click on it, oh, it works, right? It's already done. Of course, don't worry, I'm going to do a lot more. I'm going to erase this. I'm going to start from scratch to show you what they've done here. But I've already done this. This is awesome, right? This is what the catalog is all about, is building all of this. But now let's understand what happened, because otherwise that'd be too easy just looking at all of this. So if I go to settings, site settings, right? Remember, this is where we usually manage our navigation, right? We go look and feel and go to navigation. This time, it's using manage navigation now. It's no longer using structural, where we specify our own terms. It automatically, as you can see, it's using its own site collection term group called site navigation. Even though, if you remember carefully, if I open a new tab, I go to my catalog site. Where is it? There it is. If I go to my term store management here, site settings, term store management, I had it called Contoso product hierarchy, and then I used electronics there. What just happened using the connection of the catalog is I took this term, right, and I pinned it to this one. So basically it's been copied over here. And I can change them here because they're completely independent now. But because they are pinned, if ever I create a new one at the source, it's going to show up here. So I manage them at the source, but I can also manage certain properties of them just here. Because SharePoint 2013 doesn't allow you to have multiple site collections use the same term set, right? Because it gives you an error. So in this case, we bypass the error. So now I can see the navigation, and of course, what's stopping you from creating a new, open your term store management tool in this site collection, go under your site collection, site navigation, and start creating new ones. I'm not stopping you. It's just that a bunch of them come from the Contoso one, and they're pinned. But you can come and create your home, contact us, and other relative URLs that you want, right? This is just awesome. This is just awesome. So if I go to, again, site settings, navigation, I can see that it's going to use the site navigation here, right? And it's using the friendly URLs for the pages that I've determined, okay? All right, this is what just happened so far. Let's go back to my wonderful presentation here, and let's see where we're at, because I get carried away with these things. Play, there we go. So I've just connect my publishing site to my catalog, and you can instantly see why it's better, right? Because we have the integration of the terms as the navigation, and we can use them to build the URLs dynamically, right? If I go back to my site, the publishing site that I've just built, if I go under cameras and I go under digital cameras, look at the URL here at the top. It doesn't say /pages /home.aspx, it's just friendly URL. If I click on a camera, I'm going to see, of course, they're horrible. It's ugly right now. We're going to change that. But look at the URL. This is the column called group number, and this is the column item number. I built this myself. Okay. Let's go back. Let's go back home. Let's go back to our presentation. There it is. And continue. So there's huge benefits because you have cross-site publishing. That's awesome. The catalogs allow you to integrate completely into your site using navigations, using URLs, and quite a bit of stuff in there. So this is what we've just done, and to be honest, we've pretty much set everything by default. I didn't come and change any of the options, really. So we've seen all of this. Then we have to apply the look and feel. And I'm not going to do a course on branding and HTML and converting master page. So yes, of course, I prepared the branding earlier. Actually, there's a VM available from Microsoft partners where all of this is already available. So in this case, I'm going to go to Site Settings, Master Page, and I'm going to apply this Contoso Electronics master page right away. Right? So I cheated. This has already been done. Let's go to Home Page, and already we're looking a little different, right? We have this, cameras. We have our cameras here. This is what we, here, let me go to Site Content. You'll see that I have some, where's my Pages library? There it is. And under the Pages library, I don't know if you remember, while I created or connected my catalog to this publishing site, the two last questions were, do you want us to create a category page and do you want us to create an item page? Here they are, right? The category page is used when I click on one of these main categories, and the item page is when I clicked on a single camera, for example. So we're going to have to understand, right, how all of this is built. And this is where it kind of is critical. Let me make sure I go back here just to be sure that I don't skip anything. There's actually a problem that I see when I use the category and item page. Because as you notice, quick recap here. There's my browser. I've created a catalog, which is somewhere here somewhere. Well, let's just go to it here. Sites, and then we went to the catalog. We've created a list called products. We've just entered whatever you guys want. You create your own content, your own site columns, and then when you're done, you simply go to list settings, catalog, and we wanted to activate this as a catalog. These are the fields that I want to use for the friendly URLs, and this is the field that I'm going to use for navigation. Awesome. We did a full crawl, and then what we did is we came back to our publishing site and we connected to it. When we connected, we answered a bunch of questions which allowed us to have a global navigation that is built from my terms that I used in the products list. So they're dynamic. If I have some terms removed, they'll be gone from the navigation because they are pinned terms. But more than that, they've been copied into a new term store, right? Into a site collection term store called Site Navigation, which is a feature that SharePoint 2013 uses to build your navigation. So they're independent over here so that I can actually change them. As you can see, there's some options. The intended use, for example, has been said, use this term set for site navigation. Okay, awesome. But what I haven't shown you is that for each of these terms, if you go to term-driven pages, for example, it automatically says, look, if somebody clicks on audio, which is here, so if I click on this, what happens, right? Term-driven pages. So the pages, it's going to show for the category pages, it's going to go to this page in my pages library, right? For any of the main categories that I pick, but also for the children categories. Because in your term store, you can have 2, 3 levels of hierarchy, right? So which SharePoint page do you want to use for each of these? Right? And then when I click on a specific item that is under the audio category or the audio term, which page do I want to use? I want to use the catalog item page. This is how it works. This is how when I click on one of my items in the menu, it goes. You don't see this. But in the background right now, if I click on edit page, right? Let's click on edit page. There's going to be a sort of a warning. It's going to say, whoa, ho, ho, hold up. We're in front of a search-driven site. That means there are a lot of people that are using this single page. So do you want to edit the real page? Or do you want to edit the camera's page? Let me explain. Every single thing, every single page that you see here, and sub-pages, will be using under my pages library this page, the category electronics. And this is a single page that looks at the URL that I have driven there and has a web part, which is a content search web part. But by default, remember when I connected my catalog to this publishing site, I actually said create the pages for me. And when you do that, it does something that I don't really necessarily like, is that let's edit the page here. I'm editing the category electronic page template. And as you can see, it's kind of using the content search web part, but it's using a sort of its own web part. It kind of hard-coded certain things into it. You can still change it, but you can't change everything that you want the same way that you want. So just to show you from scratch, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the pages library and I'm going to create 2 brand new catalog pages. Right? One for the category and one for the item, just to show you the process that goes behind this. So I'm going to click on File, and ideally you have some new page layouts that you've built yourself. So I'm going to go create a new article page, and I have already some category page layout and a details page layout. This is all branding, right? I mean, take the time that you want to check out the branding if you want, but it's just branding. So since I'm working on the category right now, well, I'm going to call this demo category with capitals because that's how I roll. And I'm going to create this page. Right? People are not going to see this page. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to click on create. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but this time for the item page. I'm going to create, this is just page layouts. It's just the look. So demo item. There we go. And click on create. Now what I want to do is I got to find this category page and find this demo item page, and I'm going to have to go and edit them because right now they're blank. There's nothing going on here. So I click on edit, okay, and I have, this is basically the layout that I did. I mean, zone 1, zone 2, left, right, no, there's nothing to it. And I'm going to click on add a web part, and I'm going to go find my content search web part. Right? If I click on add the web part on the page, it's doing certain things by default. That's what the content search does. I'm going to click on edit the web part. And it's going to show me that I have to change the query for this web part. What is it going to go pull from the search index? And this is where the beauty comes in. I click on change query. And instead of looking at all your different items here, what do you see here at the top? You automatically have your connected catalogs that show up as a result source. So all I have to do is click on product results. It shows me obviously all the results, or in this case preview, and I have 703. And look at how easy this is going to be. I'm saying, look, use this results. So it's showing me 703 results that exist in that catalog we had originally connected, where people are authoring content. And I'm going to restrict the results by the current and child navigation terms. I'm getting goosebumps, guys. You know what this means? This means that it's going to filter down the results that it sees based on the current and child navigation terms, which I used to categorize my items in my original catalog. So let's just click on OK, and then click on OK or Apply. If I click on Save now, I have a page that shows my products based on the URL that I'm going to navigate to. The problem right now is that if I click on cameras, it's still using the old page that I had built. Why? Well, because if I go to Site Settings, Term Store Management, the site navigation and the terms that we have inside of them are still using, for example, audio, they're still using these old pages for the category and for the item. I got to change that, that's all. So I'm going to erase this or click on Browse. I'm going to find Pages, and there's my new pages that I'm building. So I'll link to that one. I click on Insert. And then I simply take copy, paste this here, because I want to use the same page for all my categories. And we'll do the same thing for my items, which I didn't build yet because there's something tricky about that one. There we go. And then you click on Save, right? So this is just going to work for the audio one. So ideally, I would do this for all of them, right? So I would go to cameras, I would do this. I would go to each and every one of them. But right now, just to go faster, I'm going to do this with audio. So if I click on audio now, I'm going to, hey, there it is, right? It's already starting to look exactly like I want. Click on Edit Page, edit the page template. And this is my content search with my demo category page, right? And if I edit, this is what I've just built, my category page for my audio items. However, right now, so I changed the query, and I could say now show 9, for example. But right now, it's only showing me the audio categories for this one. If I click on a single item, save and close, of my audio, if I click on one, for example, this one, there's nothing. How come? Well, I'm sure you remember, but if I go to my item page, my pages library, if I go to my demo item, I didn't put any web part in there. Right? So what I'll need to do is, again, go to content search, add a web part, find my content search web part, add it. I'm going to edit this web part, and I'm going to change the query as well. But you'll have to do something different, right? I can't just restrict and say, use the catalog and restrict by current child navigation. I could, but it's not what I need to do in this case because there's something different. Remember how in the URL I have the group number and the item number. The group number is because sometimes for the same item, I'll have different colors of it. So in this case, I'm going to switch to advanced mode. And I'm going to have to find my managed property, which was called product, if I remember correctly. Let's go to P, product group number, right? And I'm going to say, well, I want this. And this is a new trick that, again, I learned thank you to Bella, who wrote for a Microsoft blog post, is that you can take the token of the URL. And I'm change this to 2. Don't worry, I'm going to explain this. I'm not going to just skip over it. Here's what's happening. This query is saying, go to the product catalog that exists here, right? So by default, it's going to get me the 703 results that we've seen before. But then I'm going to add another filter. I'm going to say, look, there's a managed property, right, called group number. This is how my column is called. And I know this is a managed property because OWS comes after the name of my column. And what I want you to do is, I want you to take whatever value is in there from the results that you see and make sure that it matches the second URL token starting from the right of the URL. I'll click on OK. I'll explain what that means. Let's show 6 items. I don't know. Click on Save. All right, let's go to audio. Let's click on one of the audio items. You can see, look, it's the same MP3 player. E200, 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 just in different colors. Here's what the content search web part is doing right now. The content search is on this page. It's looking at the URL. It said, get my 703 results of the product list in this page. However, make sure that the second token, so the second value that comes after that you see in the URL, not the first one. This is the first token of the URL. Take the second one and make sure that it is equal to whatever these products have in their product group number column in the original catalog. Wow. Did you guys see what we're going with this? Again, yeah, we're doing this with products, and this is because this is the example that I have. You could do this with announcements. You can do this with events. I saw somebody say, can I have 5 site collections, HRM, management, and so on? Absolutely, right? You can have 5 lists in the same authoring site collection where people just come and create content. They don't care about the branding. They don't care about all of this gushy stuff that's around it. And then when people visit the actual intranet, then you have a connected catalog or connected catalogs, right? And you show them using, right now, look at what we have. We've built an entire site, an entire public site using, whoops, that's not the one that I wanted, using 3 pages, 2 pages. I built a site using demo category page and demo item page. And whenever I go on one of my navigation, it filters using the web part, the URL that we have at the top, right? If I filter down car audio, boom, I have my car audio. I click on one of the categories, I see all of the same ones in the same color because I filtered on the group number. So this is pretty awesome. Can you still hear me? I see somebody talking about sound. Everybody still hear me? Just one person in the chat say that they can still hear me. That would be awesome. No, yes? Okay, let's see what's going on. Oh, okay, you can still hear me, awesome. All right, so yeah, I wouldn't want the volume to be gone. So this is pretty much what the product catalog is, right? Then it's all about fine-tuning, finding the right display templates. So if I don't like the way that this is, the way that this looks like, again, you go to your site content, go to pages, and under your category page, where you put your web part, I don't want my categories to look like this. So I'll edit it, edit the page template again, and the content search web part, just like any of the new search web parts, you will have to define the query, how we get the products, but by default, it's using picture on the left with 3 lines on the right. So picture on the left with 1, 2, 3 lines on the right. Well, I might want to look at it differently, right? I might want to look at this with Contoso electronics list with paging, right? There we go. And I might want to change the way that this display template looks. It might be product gallery item template. And already it's changing the way that it's seen directly here. Right? You choose, I think it's the same one, I have 2 of each. That's awesome. So I can then change even the property mapping, and I can say, well, am I looking at the right columns here? Is everything properly matched? Okay, I'll click on OK. I'll click on Save. Look what we just did, guys. So audio, find one of our audio, and we have our categories. This is our item page, right? So all of this, I may have changed the query accidentally, but you get the idea where you change the branding of what you're looking at using the display templates. Let me get back to my presentation here, because there's a lot of things we didn't cover yet. So there's the content search web part, and then there's display templates. Display templates, they control how things look with everything related to search. Even if you're using this search center, you'll see that everything that you see on screen, even the refinement panel, uses different display templates to display the information in front of you. It's no XSLT, woohoo, right? It's all HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery, and everything that you want. So there's different types of display templates that you can build, right? There's control, which used to be called content query main if you built a lot of content query web parts. There's filter or groups and hover panels that were similar to the header.xsl that we had before. And of course, where we do most of our work, item.xsl or item display template, which used to be the item style.xsl. Very similar, very same concept as before. So basically the control display template controls the big box and how the big box of how you want to render your items. This is usually where you link your CSS or custom JavaScripts for your display template. And then your item display template is going to change how each individual items is displayed on your page. So this is pretty much what you see on what we've built so far, right? So for example, if I edit this page again, edit the page template. So I want to make sure I edit the web part. Then we go to our change query just to make sure everything's still okay here. Restrict by navigation, okay, awesome. And then we choose, well, which template do you want to use? The control template. So this is a custom one with paging that pulls our own CSS, for example, or we could have said list with paging, apply, right? It doesn't really change much. It depends what CSS you're going to load and what JavaScript you may be loading with all of this. Then you choose your item display template. How is each item going to be shown in the results? Is it going to be picture on the left with 3 lines? Or is it going to be, as we saw, so we got to see what property mapping they're using. Let's cheat here. It's not showing it to me. So we want to know why the picture is going and coming. And there we go. We should be able to see it now. All right, sometimes SharePoint does that for us. But then when you go to your display templates, it just basically changes how each individual item is going to be seen. Click on OK. And there we go. So of course my CSS is beautiful right now, but you get the idea, guys, right? Don't laugh at my CSS. Okay. All right. And the same thing, if I click on an item, and then I have my content search, and I could change the display template for that one as well. The next step is going to be to add your refiners. So if you go to Contoso Electronics, it's this section here on the left. How do you filter? Show me all the silver ones. And now we see all of the silver ones that are going to show up. Now again, let me refresh. Wonderful SharePoint. So we use the refinements, but the refinements are all the terms, or all the properties that you assign in your product catalog that are going to appear here. And of course, you can just simply use them. For example, 18 resolution, and then boom, I have my products. And again, think of it this way. If you're building announcements or you're building anything of that sort that is not products, well, you can filter on a category of your announcements. You can filter on authors. You can filter on dates. You can filter on tons of other things. It doesn't have to be products, but I think I've said that enough here, right? So how do we add these on our publishing page? Well, this is the tricky part. You actually have to go back to the original catalog site. I know, it's weird. And you're going to go to your term store where your original electronics term store has been used, right? You want to make sure that everything that you have under the, for example, product hierarchy and intended use has been set to use this term set for faceted navigation. So you want to make sure that this is checked. Then, under each of these, yes. Okay. Under each of these term sets, audio, cameras, computers, and even the ones below it, it doesn't make sense that they're going to use all of the same refinements, right? So you might want to change the different refiners that are available for each and every one of them. So in this case, you go to faceted navigation, and you can see the different refiners that are going to be available. You can customize them by stopping the inheriting from electronics. So right now it's all managed in electronics, and as you can see, I can customize the refiners. So I can add refiners that I want. So I can say here are all my columns. So I can add anything that I want from the available refiners. And refiners are not always going to be available. So if you've created a column and you don't see it here, there's a very simple reason for that. When you create a managed property, especially when it's done automatically. So let's say I go back to my search administration. I'm going to go under my search schema, where I'm going to be able to find all of my managed and crawled properties. So I make sure that I'm looking through my managed properties. And then I want to find my product managed properties. So I have, for example, the group number, the item number, and other columns that you may have done. I forget the names of them. You have to make sure that when you edit them, because this is not necessarily done by default, that it is refinable, yes. Right? Otherwise, the side columns or the managed properties that you create will not be available to be set here as one of the available refiners. Once you choose a refiner, you can choose which display template you're going to use to show them. For example, if the prices here are too large, I might separate them by tens of dollars, 10, then 20, then $30, then $40, then $50. And this is pretty much going to be my refinement panel on the left. So let's edit the page again. Am I on the edit? No. So again, go to site content if you see that you're not on the right page. You want to make sure that you're under the category page itself. And you want to edit this page, edit the page template, and we're going to add the refinement panel here on the left. So again, we go to search, we have the refinement. Not to be confused with taxonomy refinement panel. I explained that if we still have time towards the end. I'll click on add. And as you can see, it automatically adds some of the refinement panels. What you can do is you can edit this web part. And you can say, use the refinement configuration defined in the navigation term set. So by using this and clicking on apply, I'm going to get always the ones that I have associated for whatever I'm looking at in front of me. Right? And you can change some of the controls if you've created them yourself. And from now on, all I have to do is click on here and go and manage my term set, go to product hierarchy, go to electronics, and change in the faceted navigation the refiners that you want available. You can always preview them as well, and it usually shows you how it's going to look like. All right, we don't have any refiners at the moment. You got to make sure they're crawled, they're available. So we're running out of time. I don't have time to actually go through each and every one of them, but it also allows you to go through each and individual one, right? Stop inheriting and customize them. Because if you look at my Contoso, my electronics here, if I'm looking at computers or desktops, the refiners, I'll let it load. This is not my laptop one. This is the public available one. But I'm not going to want to filter the desktops the same way that I'm going to filter home appliances and microwaves, right? So I don't want all of them to be displayed at all times. Right? Here I want to be able to filter by hard drive and memory, whereas if I'm looking at microwaves, I'm going to be able to filter using other things. I want to size and God knows what, right? What else? The weight, apparently, that's a factor in your microwave. I didn't know. So this is essentially what you need to do, right? All right. We've covered quite a bit of things. We are running almost out of time, but I hope this helps a little bit. Right? So again, manage properties only. You have to make sure that they are marked as refinable. They are available by site collections as well, but most of them are going to be empty. Just make sure they're used for faceted navigation. This is really an awesome feature. Even if you're building, I've had a customer, 15,000 employees trying to build an intranet, and we're thinking, well, when we build our announcements, right? We're showing announcements to the entire company and to sectors and divisions. Later on in time, how are people going to find previous announcements and filter to find them easily? It took 2 seconds with a product catalog because using the faceted navigation, they were able to find them based on what category of announcement they were looking at and kind of filter everything down. So refinement web part, we've kind of seen all of this. And I hope this gives you, and this is Bella and I hope I don't destroy the name, but there is a blog link that is available, but it's a video, so you won't be able to click it. But it will be available as part of the blog post that I'm going to show afterwards. But this URL really shows step by step, right, how to build all of this. So I hope that it really gives you quite a bit of ideas. And I hope that using the example that we've been using today, you understand exactly right now what's happening in this Contoso website, right? We can see that we have a managed navigation, that this is only using 2 pages, a category page and an item page. That once you click on one of the categories, there's a web part that filters on the catalog to only show what is necessary for you. Right? And then when you click on one of the single items, it's going to go to a separate page, that has a different content search web part with a different page layout and look and feel that displays that single item that you've specified here in the URL, for example, right? So, and this entire site is built on 2 pages, except of course for the home page, if you want to count that as a page in your build, in your architecture, right? So this is pretty awesome. And again, there's nothing stopping you from using this in other scenarios, in other cases, whether it's announcements, whether it's events, whether it's actual collaboration, where you want to centralize the authoring in one place to make it easy to use and easy to understand, and then publish only the relevant pieces in your extranet where your customers log in, or an internet-facing website, or just an intranet for your company. Right? So I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to show you today. So I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to check back or click on Twitter, say you loved it. I don't know. I'll take questions now. If ever you have questions, if I didn't cover something that is that you wanted to see, I'll try to answer them right now. Product catalog is still not available for Office 365. That is correct. However, we have the content search web part that's starting to appear now, so that already helps a little bit. But for the product catalog itself, it is only available using the on-premises version of SharePoint 2013. So let me go through the questions that we have that I may have skipped. Can I search for enterprise keywords and all the files tagged in search? I don't call. Here we. I'm not sure that I understand that question, but yes, you can. You have to just to make sure that you use whether you use enterprise keyword, that you're using a managed metadata column and that the full crawl has taken place to get all of that content. Is it required to do a full crawl for this? Yes, we've covered that. When the crawl stall the search database or not with the I/O for the SQL database? So performance-wise, yeah, you got to be careful with continuous crawl, right? Be very careful with continuous crawl. It takes up a lot of juice in your environment. So you want to make sure that you have smaller content sources that you have identified, and only they will use the continuous crawl. Continuous crawl does not need to be everywhere in the entire farm. So there was a question about what about all the other products that I have on the site that don't show connected. No, basically you go throughout your SharePoint farm, you create products. So the product list, right? Those are your products. So if you go to your actual catalog site, which that's what I'm trying to do here, there it goes. Right? I can create 20 SharePoint lists over here, and it's going to become 20 individual catalogs. Right? Then these catalogs, once they've been crawled by the search engine knows that these are product catalogs. Right? So they're going to be available whenever you go to a publishing site or any site and you say, I would like to connect a new product catalog. So within the same publishing site, for example, this one, if I go to site settings, I can go to, where was it here? I can go to manage catalog connections, and I can connect as many catalogs as I want. Right? You don't have to connect only one. You can connect 20 for the same intranet or the same extranet, no problem. Absolutely, the webinar is definitely recorded, and I will be sending it through a blog post and through everyone that joined today as an email. So don't worry about that. I think it'll be useful as well for you to share with anybody else in your teams or other ones joining later on. I hope, was it useful? You guys got some ideas? I hope that you realize that product catalog has nothing to do with actual products necessarily. Right? There's different ways to use it that can be very, very helpful and practical in your environment. It looks like all the questions. Let me know if I've skipped a question. There's quite a bit here, but it looks like I've covered most of them. I'm glad you like the fonts in my slide deck. All right, so I'll stop at it for now. If you need to contact me, go ahead via Twitter or visit our blog, subscribe. We'll have tons of more blog posts. Here's an example of what the blog looks like, so you can see what we've been covering. We don't usually try to cover as much content as we can. If I go to blog section here on the right, so here, this is the step-by-step article. So the SharePoint 2013 product catalog blog post will show you step-by-step how you can build an announcement catalog. So as you can see here, I create an announcement list. I think I've skipped that part there. Announcement list. I've just created my announcements. And I built catalog settings and I built everything. So this is really a step-by-step article that can help you out. And there's tons of other articles that you may have found. Thanks everybody for coming. Which is the best approach you suggest to create a cool product catalog, look and feel, just like your site does? To be honest, design it using regular HTML. So this design here, you'll notice that in SharePoint 2013, there's something called the Design Manager, and it allows you to convert a regular HTML into a master page. I have a bunch of sessions on this that you can look. If you go to SlideShare and you look for it, I kind of show and explain it. I think I have a step-by-step somewhere in a blog post. So if you search for Benjamin Nyland and then Design Manager, I have tons of step-by-steps that are somewhere on the internet. And it'll show you how to convert your regular HTML into a regular master page. And then all you have to do is build your custom category page and item page, put the content search web part, and boom. It's very basic CSS look and feel, to be honest. All right, awesome. I'm gonna stop it for now. Thank you everyone for coming and spending an hour and a half on this. I really appreciate your time. I hope that it was able to help you and to get you some ideas. I'm gonna finish the recording, send it by email, and put it as a blog post as well for you to be able to share it with anybody else. Thank you very much. Have a good one.